please give us your name?
Jeffrey Epstein.
On the morning of Saturday, August 10th, 2019, inside the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan, a prison guard was making his routine inspection rounds. As he passed cell 24, he suddenly stopped. The inmate was lying beside his bed in a strange position. The guard quickly opened the door and attempted to wake him, but the man did not move and was not breathing. By the time the prison doctor arrived, he uttered only one word: dead. Everyone froze in place, because the man who had died was not an ordinary prisoner. He was the central figure in one of the most notorious and disturbing child exploitation and human trafficking cases of the 21st century. He was Jeffrey Epstein. What made this story even stranger was that Epstein was not the only person connected to the case who died under mysterious circumstances. Jean-Luc Brunel, the French modeling agent implicated alongside him, was found hanging in his prison cell in 2022. Steven Hoffenberg, Epstein's former financial associate, was discovered dead in his apartment later that same year, his body having been left undiscovered for days. Virginia Giuffre, one of the most prominent accusers whose testimony helped expose the scandal, was officially reported to have died by suicide in Australia in 2025. All of these deaths and all of this mystery raise one major question. Who was Jeffrey Epstein? And did he truly take his own life, or did someone want to silence him forever? This is where our story begins. The beginning, from Brooklyn to Wall Street. On January 20th, 1953, in Brooklyn, New York, Jeffrey Edward Seymour Epstein was born into a modest Jewish family. His father worked as a groundskeeper in public parks, collecting trash and maintaining lawns. His mother, Pauline, worked as an elementary school assistant. From an early age, Jeffrey appeared different from other children. He was a talented pianist and displayed an extraordinary aptitude for mathematics. He quickly learned how to capitalize on his intelligence, tutoring classmates for money while still a student himself. Thanks to his exceptional academic performance, he skipped 2 full years of high school and graduated at the age of just 16 in 1969. He enrolled at Cooper Union and later transferred to the Current Institute of Mathematical Sciences. However, in 1974, only 1 year before graduation, he unexpectedly dropped out without earning a degree. A surprising decision for someone considered so academically gifted. After leaving college, he met Donald Barr, headmaster of the prestigious Dalton School in Manhattan. In a move that many found surprising, Barr hired Epstein as a mathematics and physics teacher, despite his lack of a university degree. Epstein quickly gained popularity among students, many of whom sought private tutoring from him outside school hours. However, concerns soon began to emerge regarding his behavior around female students. Complaints surfaced, accusing him of attempting to observe girls in changing areas and engaging in inappropriate conduct. To avoid public controversy and protect the school's reputation, administrators eventually dismissed him, officially citing performance-related reasons. The rise begins. Wall Street and millions. It was not long before Alan Greenberg, the chief executive of Bear Stearns, one of America's most powerful investment firms, noticed Epstein. Greenberg happened to be the father of 2 of Epstein's former students and was reportedly impressed by his intelligence. In 1976, he offered Epstein a position as a junior trader. From his first day on Wall Street, Epstein focused on building relationships with wealthy and influential clients. Within only 4 years, he had risen to become a limited partner at the firm. Yet his rapid success also attracted suspicion. Several colleagues accused him of manipulating financial records and engaging in questionable practices. When internal investigations began to gain momentum, Epstein quietly resigned and left before any findings could become public. In 1981, he launched his own consulting business, specializing in recovering stolen and misappropriated funds. Over time, he became known for navigating what many referred to as dark money networks and complex financial transactions. One of his most notable clients during this period was businessman Adnan Khashoggi, the financial partner and the Ponzi scheme. In 1987, Stephen Hoffenberg, the owner of a large debt collection company, entered Epstein's life and invited him to serve as a financial consultant. What developed between the two men would later become one of the largest financial scandals in American history: a Ponzi scheme. The concept was simple. Money was collected from investors under the promise of substantial returns, while funds from new investors were used to pay earlier investors, with no legitimate business activity generating the profits. According to investigators, approximately $600 million was taken from investors through the scheme. Yet, at the height of their success, Epstein unexpectedly distanced himself from the operation and withdrew before it collapsed, leaving Hoffenberg to face the consequences alone. The real fortune: Leslie Wexner and Victoria's Secret. After leaving Hoffenberg's company, Epstein established a new firm called J. Epstein & Co., specializing in managing the wealth of billionaires. His most important client was Leslie Wexner, the founder of some of the world's most recognizable retail brands, including Victoria's Secret and Bath & Body Works. What astonished many observers was that, after only a short period of working together, Wexner granted Epstein extensive authority over his financial affairs. Under Epstein's management, access to enormous wealth and influence followed. His reputation grew rapidly, and he acquired luxury properties, private aircraft, and connections to some of the most powerful individuals in business and politics. By the 1990s, Epstein had become a figure surrounded by mystery. Despite his immense lifestyle, many questioned the true source of his fortune and how he had accumulated such extraordinary influence. Ghislaine Maxwell, the woman who opened doors. In November 1991, British media tycoon Robert Maxwell was found dead near the Canary Islands, under circumstances that remain controversial. Known as one of Britain's most influential newspaper owners, Maxwell left behind a complex legacy. After his death, investigators discovered serious financial irregularities within his business empire. Among those affected was his daughter, Ghislaine Maxwell. At a memorial event following her father's death, Maxwell encountered Jeffrey Epstein. The two quickly developed a close relationship, both personally and professionally. Over time, Ghislaine became one of the most important figures in Epstein's life. She introduced him to influential social circles and helped him build relationships with politicians, academics, business leaders, and celebrities. According to numerous later allegations and court proceedings, Maxwell also played a key role in recruiting young women and girls into Epstein's social network. Together, they cultivated an image of sophistication and philanthropy. Epstein donated money to universities, scientific institutions, and research projects, particularly those related to neuroscience, artificial intelligence, evolutionary theory, and theoretical physics. These donations helped him gain access to elite circles that would otherwise have been difficult to enter. Connections to powerful figures. Through his growing network, Epstein developed relationships with many prominent public figures. Among those frequently mentioned were former U.S. President Bill Clinton and future U.S. President Donald Trump. Clinton was reported to have traveled on Epstein's private aircraft on multiple occasions. while Trump and Epstein were known to socialize during the 1990s and early 2000s. Photographs and videos from that era show the two men attending social gatherings and events together. Their friendship reportedly ended around 2004, following disagreements related to a real estate deal. Over the years, these relationships would become the subject of intense public scrutiny as investigators attempted to determine the extent of Epstein's connections and influence. The island. As Epstein's wealth and power expanded, he purchased a private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands, known as Little St. James. Over time, the island acquired a far more infamous nickname in the media and among critics: Epstein Island. A large estate was constructed on the property, complete with guest accommodations and extensive facilities. Former employees, visitors, and investigators later described the island as a highly controlled environment where guests were frequently monitored. Numerous allegations emerged regarding activities that allegedly took place there, making the island one of the most controversial locations associated with the Epstein case. Photographs, flight records, witness testimonies, and court documents would later transform Little St. James into a symbol of the broader scandal. The first major breakthrough, 2005. In March 2005, a concerned parent contacted police in Palm Beach, Florida. The complaint involved a 14-year-old girl who had allegedly been recruited under the promise of earning money by providing a massage to a wealthy man. What was described afterward triggered a criminal investigation. The case was assigned to Detective Michael Reiter, who began examining the allegations. As he followed the evidence, the investigation led him directly to Jeffrey Epstein. Surveillance of Epstein's residence revealed a steady flow of young girls entering and leaving the property. Many appeared to be students. Further examination uncovered previous complaints involving similar allegations. Investigators discovered a recurring pattern. Young girls were allegedly approached, offered money, and brought to Epstein's residence under false pretenses. As the investigation expanded, authorities gathered statements from dozens of alleged victims whose accounts shared striking similarities. Eventually, police obtained search warrants and arrest warrants. When officers entered Epstein's residence, they collected evidence that they believed strengthened the case considerably. At that moment, investigators thought they finally had enough to bring Epstein to justice. What happened next, however, would shock many observers and become one of the most controversial legal episodes in modern American history. The most controversial plea deal in modern American history. After investigators completed what appeared to be a strong case against Epstein, many expected a lengthy criminal trial and severe punishment. Instead, the outcome stunned both the victims and the public. In 2007, Epstein's legal team negotiated a controversial non-prosecution agreement, NPA, with federal prosecutors. Under the terms of the agreement, Epstein pleaded guilty to reduced state charges involving the solicitation of prostitution from a minor. In return, federal prosecutors agreed not to pursue additional federal charges related to the broader investigation. The deal also provided protection to certain potential co-conspirators from future federal prosecution arising from the same investigation. Critics later described the agreement as extraordinarily favorable to Epstein. In 2008, he was sentenced to 18 months in jail. However, the conditions of his confinement became the subject of widespread criticism. He was allowed to leave the jail for extended periods during the day under a work release program and return later in the evening. For many observers, the arrangement appeared far removed from the punishment typically imposed in comparable cases. Even more troubling for victims was the revelation that many of them had not been informed about the agreement before it was finalized. When Epstein completed roughly 13 months of his sentence, he was released. Although he was required to register as a sex offender, he soon returned to a lifestyle of extraordinary wealth and influence. For years, many believed the case was effectively over. They were wrong. The journalist who refused to let the story die. Nearly a decade later, investigative journalist Julie K. Brown of the Miami Herald began examining the Epstein case. While reviewing court records, she encountered documents relating to the controversial non-prosecution agreement. What began as a routine investigation soon developed into a years-long effort to uncover the full story. Brown interviewed victims, law enforcement officials, attorneys, and witnesses. She reviewed thousands of pages of records and uncovered evidence suggesting that many aspects of the original case had never been properly examined in public. Most importantly, she gave a voice to numerous women who said they had been ignored for years. In late 2018, the Miami Herald published Brown's groundbreaking investigative series, Perversion of Justice. The series generated enormous public attention. Lawmakers, legal experts, and media organizations across the United States began demanding answers. Questions quickly emerged about how Epstein had secured such an unusually favorable agreement and whether powerful individuals had influenced the outcome. The renewed scrutiny placed immense pressure on federal authorities. This time, the investigation would not quietly disappear. The arrest that shocked the world. In July 2019, federal authorities arrested Jeffrey Epstein at an airport in New Jersey. The charges were far more serious than those involved in the earlier plea agreement. Prosecutors accused him of operating a large-scale sex trafficking network involving underage girls over many years. During searches of his properties, investigators reportedly recovered large quantities of evidence, including photographs, electronic devices, documents, and records connected to the investigation. The arrest instantly became one of the biggest news stories in the world. Attention focused not only on Epstein himself, but also on the numerous influential figures who had associated with him over the decades. Journalists, politicians, and investigators began examining flight logs, social connections, photographs, and public records in an effort to understand the scope of his network. As pressure mounted, speculation intensified regarding what information Epstein might reveal if the case proceeded to trial. Many believed that a public trial could expose embarrassing or damaging details involving powerful individuals. But the trial would never take place. The mysterious death. On August 10, 2019, only weeks after his arrest, Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his jail cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York. Authorities officially ruled the death a suicide by hanging. However, the circumstances surrounding the incident immediately generated controversy and skepticism. Several factors contributed to the public doubts. Reports indicated that Epstein had previously been placed under suicide watch, but was later removed from it. Questions also emerged regarding staffing shortages, procedural failures, and monitoring practices inside the facility. According to official findings, certain required checks were not carried out as scheduled during the hours leading up to his death. Additional controversy arose when surveillance camera footage became the subject of public debate and legal disputes. As details emerged, numerous theories circulated regarding what had happened. Some argued that Epstein had taken his own life. Others believed he had been killed to prevent him from revealing information about influential individuals connected to his activities. Despite years of investigations, lawsuits, media scrutiny, and public speculation, no definitive evidence has emerged that conclusively resolved all public doubts surrounding the case. As a result, Epstein's death remains one of the most debated events in recent American criminal history. After Epstein's death. Although Epstein was gone, the investigation did not end. Civil lawsuits continued. Victims continued seeking accountability. Attention increasingly shifted toward Ghislaine Maxwell, who had long been considered one of Epstein's closest associates. In 2020, Maxwell was arrested by federal authorities. Following a highly publicized trial, she was convicted on multiple charges related to her role in recruiting and grooming underage girls for Epstein. In 2022, she was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. Her conviction represented one of the most significant legal outcomes arising from the Epstein scandal. Meanwhile, documents, court filings, witness testimony, and previously sealed records continued to attract intense public interest. Many people hoped these materials would reveal the identities of everyone involved in Epstein's network. Others cautioned that appearing in records, contact books, or flight logs does not by itself establish criminal wrongdoing. The distinction between association and criminal conduct became a central issue in public discussions surrounding the case. Conclusion. The story of Jeffrey Epstein is unlike almost any other criminal case in modern history. It is a story involving immense wealth, political influence, social power, criminal allegations, investigative journalism, legal controversy, and unanswered questions. A man who began life in modest circumstances rose to become one of the most connected figures in elite society. Yet, the same network that granted him access to the powerful ultimately became the focus of worldwide scrutiny. Years after his death, the case continues to generate investigations, lawsuits, documentaries, books, and public debate. And one question still remains. Did Jeffrey Epstein take all of his secrets to the grave? Or are there still truths waiting to be uncovered?